Fox News facing this new legal heat in a billion-dollar case over lies and conspiracy theories. The chief over there, Rupert Murdoch, and top anchors are now facing legal demands to go do something you really rarely see in modern media, which is take the stand at an actual trial to explain, defend, or perhaps confess to why they aired lies that in many ways led to or softened the ground for an insurrection. That is why this is a media story, but far more than a media story. The evidence has already shown that many knew Trump was lying about the election, but they, quote, endorsed it anyway. And that word comes from Murdoch himself. Now, the reason this is in court is not because of the Jan 6 committee or Congress or Media Matters, which is a Fox kind of critic group. The reason is that somebody says they were legally hurt and defamed by Fox, specifically one of the voting machine companies. You may have heard of them, Dominion. Well, today there's damaging new evidence from this Dominion case as the pressure heats up. More emails that show the internal Fox News fact-checking department, they have one of those, it is supposed to provide some guardrails, and that it had fact-checked in advance and alerted that some of the claims about this plaintiff, the voting machine company Dominion, were just false. And then, this won't surprise you if you follow the story, Fox News went ahead and aired it anyway. And again, that's not somebody outside the company fact-checking them or the Washington Post or the New York Times. That's their own journalistic or media process, or in this case, I suppose, a failed attempt at journalism, because journalism means you fact-check and follow the facts you find. This is kind of the opposite, at least according to Dominion's newly obtained evidence. So this is what they'll face at trial. Now, here's some of the key people that could take the stand. Murdoch, Baer, who hosts the 6 p.m. hour over there, Bartiromo, Carlson, Hannity, Ingram, and you see several more. Now, in this recent hearing, and we touched on this last night during a busy news broadcast, but in a brand new hearing, lawyers for Mr. Murdoch are arguing that he shouldn't have to take a stand, among other reasons, saying it would just be an inconvenience, that he's already provided the deposition testimony, that he shouldn't have to do this. The judge said Murdoch is, quote, hardly infirm. The man keeps a busy business schedule. Also, his own outlets recently reported on his engagement and wedding, planning to spend time with his fiancée there in California, the UK, Montana, and New York, which led the judge, drawing on this information from Murdoch's own New York Post, to say, don't make me look like an idiot and claim the guy is somehow unable to travel to court if he can travel everywhere else. Now, what you are seeing here, in part, are the kind of, I'll say, weak or unconvincing arguments that lawyers sometimes make when they have a difficult client. Because let me put it like this. In a case like this, which is going to trial and has $1 billion on the line, and you've already had a key person, Murdoch, sit down for the depositions, you're probably not going to get out of having him testify at the real trial. The way you do that would be to settle, to pay out, which so far they haven't done. But these lawyers, and I want to be clear about this, I'm not being wry, I'm not joking. These lawyers aren't just making a weak argument out of the blue because they're bad at lawyering. It is far more likely, based on what we know, that they're making a weak argument because they had to, because they work for a client ultimately who said, I don't care what you say, I don't want to go in there, I don't want to have to be put as part of this trial, on trial, do something. So they did. They trotted out this idea that Rupert Murdoch, traveling around the world, running this company, getting married, is too infirm or too weak to testify. Now, what kind of client might that remind you of?
No! No! I can't have this now.
He's right. Who will they want to testify?
Well, they'll want Dad.
Okay, now, but we won't accept that.
Protect the egg chamber.
They'll want Dad. Well, you could see the yes people coming out of me. We won't let that happen. And both things can be true. There are many situations where, as in the fictional HBO Succession, based partly on Fox and Murdoch, and in the real world, they do get out of stuff. We've covered cases that Fox has evaded. Mr. Murdoch, we've covered, has been in scandals before, including the hacking scandal in Britain, and he held on to his empire for the most part. But this is American court, and they may not be able to get out from under this. That's where a fake succession, a fictional story, meets the reality. There's an exchange with Murdoch that shows he himself was worried about all of this from the perspective of Trump's so-called base. Nobody wants Trump as an enemy. 75 million people voted for him. The idea being, again, that the journalism, if you want to call it that, and again, the plaintiff here, the voting machine company, doesn't call it journalism. They call it defamatory lies. But whatever you call it, a court case will figure that out. The allegation is that Murdoch basically all but admits to it being up for auction to the audience, to the money, to anything but the truth. Quote, if Trump says don't watch Fox News, Murdoch says, here we have for you, maybe some don't. So the Fox anchors go on to endorse Trump's lies. Murdoch knows about it. He never saw evidence of fraud. We had that from earlier filings. He admitted the election was not stolen, which, of course, is what the whole insurrection was about. And then you have the Fox anchors going out and peddling the lies. Donald Trump made a return to Fox News after quite a hiatus. He spoke to Sean Hannity this week. Hannity and Laura Ingraham are people who have previously now, only because of this case, stated under oath they didn't believe Trump's lies.
We've got evidence of corruption all across the country in countless districts. The machine ran an algorithm that shaved votes from Trump and awarded them to Biden. They used the machines to trash large batches of votes that should have been awarded to President Trump. And they used a machine to inject and add massive quantities of votes for Mr. Biden. A lot of the machines, particularly by the Dominion Company, in which Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi hold interests, along with Mr. Soros has a connection to that as well. They actually have a Chinese software or parts in them.
The machines can be hacked. There's no question about that. Their machines can be hacked.
There were all kinds of questions about that, including, as I just showed you, and we only know this because of the legal process, the fact checks from within the company itself. I want to emphasize to you, because it may sound like a media story. You say, Ari, your top story tonight is about Fox. We're talking about the media. It's media. It involves the media. But it is about how people, in this case, some very powerful people who lost an election and were trying to stage a coup to steal your vote, how they were able to use Fox to advance their coup. Fox being an intermediary, and whether they were a knowing, malicious intermediary is what will be resolved at this particular trial. So looking at this as a media story would be no different than looking at, in a different context, people who planned to trespass or storm the Capitol, and they used Reddit to promote themselves or used an app to communicate to each other and say that's a tech story. Well, no, it's an insurrection story. It's a do you live in a democracy story, although they used tech, or in this case, they used media to intermediate. Because I'll tell you this, and we've covered this a lot. Without Fox, Sidney Powell is just kind of talking, maybe tweeting a little. Without Fox, it doesn't get out there this way. Ms. Powell, Mr. Eastman, and other individuals, they're all under legal and criminal scrutiny in the Jan 6 probe over whether, as part of what I just showed you and a heck of a lot of other activity, they actually broke the law. So that's why this is way bigger than media. Then you have Tucker Carlson, who is probably the most watched, most influential individual currently backing the MAGA movement. He's been asked to testify here, new this week. He wrote those private texts he never knew would get out, which show what he really thought or what he was telling people privately he thought about all this, while he used his power, his platform, his influence to do the opposite on a road to, again, many people who got this kind of information going on to commit crimes.
For 5 years, we have watched the news media treat Donald Trump in a way that no American president has ever been treated. On the big things, on matters of civilizational importance, Trump told the truth bluntly, often when nobody else would. Donald Trump, in other words, is and has always been a living indictment of the people who run this country.
I don't have to say anything about Mr. Carlson. He said it himself. He told on himself, as they say. So we're seeing how all of this is an exercise for Mr. Carlson and others in contradicting their own views, that they pretend at night. Now, this matters because it makes it more likely that Fox could lose this case, end up paying $1.5 billion, a little less. It also matters, as I've mentioned, because it's not just media. It's about how we do democracy in America. And if we do democracy in America, and if this is a blueprint that people look at and go, well, that went too far. Let's not do that again. It cost $1 billion. Shows got canceled. Mr. Dobbs' show was already yanked off the air around the time this suit was first filed. Or does it become something where people say, that worked, slap on the wrist, got away with it, get back to it? Dominion is also putting the heat on Maria Bartiromo. She had that lawyer I mentioned, Sidney Powell, on, even after Powell revealed that one of her sources for her supposed information was someone who got it through experiencing time travel in a semi-conscious state. That is so bananas, you would obviously be better off saying nothing than saying, hey, no, it's my time travel friend. Again, the point is not to just make fun of them. They can do that on themselves. It's kind of its own self-parody. The point is to show how on notice, legally and otherwise, these people were before they aired this stuff, which folks reacted to. And remember, Ms. Powell wasn't a pundit. She was an authorized representative of Donald Trump. The Jan 6 committee only many, many months later exposed that at one point Mr. Trump was trying to make her in charge of one of the 8 coup plots to seize voting machines if she could get the military to do it. The sliver of good news there is there's no sign that anyone in the military was going to go along with anything like that. The bad news is that's who could have been put in charge. And that could have been a constitutional crisis. It could have gone to the Supreme Court. And none of that would have been moving in the public realm without the help of people like these Fox hosts. Now, as for Bartiromo, was she just bad at vetting her information, which is her job? Well, she admits, again, under oath, that what she heard about that source from Powell wasn't evidence. It was nonsense and unreliable. As Jay-Z once said, they're all weirdos, actors, De Niro's in practice, looking at themselves in the mirror backwards. Acting and bad acting is one thing. Acting in service of an insurrection is another.